पादान् सगणललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरतिशे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone today evening for our discussion. It's actually a continuation of the discussion that we began last time. So we are looking at the teachings that Sripad Ramanujacharya had from his maternal uncle Sri Shaila Purna in Tirupati. So it is said that for 18 times Sripad Ramanujacharya traveled to Tirupati by foot, and each time Sri Shaila Purna discussed the entire Ramayana with him, all 24,000 verses. That's called as Parayana. That means you study the entire 24,000 text from beginning to the end. And each time Sri Shaila Purna emphasized a different meaning. Okay, so there are 18 prominent areas of focus of Ramayana that he emphasized, and each time a different theme was taken to emphasize in the discussion between Sripad Ramanujacharya and Sri Shaila Purna. So this is a verse that summarizes all 18 of them. Tattvam hitam purushakara pumartya shaishya kashtartha panchakam akinchana deshalabha kartartya vartana nivasa samudvayartha ashastrojjana vyasana shashti kala jayartaha. So this is how all these 18 items are, all the 18 topics are actually mentioned in this one verse, beginning from Tattvam Hitam Purushakara Pumartha. So currently we are discussing only the second, third and fourth currently last time, and today also we will do that only. So the first one is Tattvam. We will come to that a little later, but the second one is Hitam. Hitam means we know what is beneficial and the most beneficial is Sharanagati. So Hitam is Sharanagati. That is the second item. The third is Purushakara. Purushakara means you need the mercy of Lakshmi Devi or Sita Devi. And without her mercy, you cannot get the mercy of the Lord. So that is Purushakara. And the fourth is Pumartha. Pumartha kind of comes from our Purushartha, the highest Purushartha, which is service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is considered the highest Purushartha. So today we will restrict ourselves to this discussion of Hitam, Purushakara and Pumartha. This is what we did last time also, and we are continuing that today. Okay, so last time, so we essentially listed out all the 18. I'll not go through them again because currently we are focusing only on the second, the third and the fourth. That is Hitam, Purushakara and Pumartha. And in fact, today we are going to mainly speak about Purushakara, recommendation of Goddess of Fortune. Okay, so these are 18 lessons. So Hitam we discussed is Sharanagati. So we saw this verse last time from the Yajurveda that says that Tasmat apivatyam prapannam na prati prayachanti. Any mistake a person does, if he begs forgiveness, he is never to be rejected but always accepted. So this was a famous verse of Ramanujacharya because it indicates that the Lord himself follows this. Hence, if as his devotees we go to him and take complete shelter, then he cannot reject us as well. Okay. So then we saw a lot about Sharanagati. I'll not go into that, but there are at least 11 stories of Sharanagati. We have done all these things long back. So I'm just going ahead on my slides. And last time we started with this Purushakara. So if you remember, we said that even in stories where apparently Purushakara is not present, it is still there. So for example, how did Sugriv get the mercy of the Lord? Okay, so there also Purushakara is there. Correct. So because Sita Devi is asking Hanuman, Vanaranam Naranam cha katamasit samagama. How come the monkeys and the human beings, how come they became friends? And the answer to that is Uttarayam grihitva su tani abarani cha idam pashya iti ramaya darshayamasa vanaraha. So basically Sita Devi, when she was being kidnapped, she had dropped her ornaments, and Sugriva and the monkeys brought it before Lord Ramachandra. In this way, they served Sita Devi and got their mercy. Or rather, the goddess of fortune gave them that opportunity of service, and in this way, she bestowed her Purushakara on them. Okay, and Pumartha, we saw, is the highest Purushartha, that is service, and that is exemplified by Hanuman ji, who basically said that, who tells Sita Devi that among all the monkeys, some of them are superior to me and some are equal to me, but no one in Sugriv's army is inferior to me. So basically, this is Purushakara. That means the highest Purushartha is to identify oneself as a very ordinary servant of the Lord. So all this we did last time. We also saw how Lord Ramachandra himself exemplifies this Purushartha. We saw this beautiful verse in the Ramayana. Imausma Munishardula Kinkarau Samupastitau Ajnapaya Munishreshta Shasanam Karavavakim. Where Ram and Lakshman, after killing Tataka and Subahu and driving away Marich, when all the yagyas completed successfully, they're pressing the feet of their Guru Vishwamitra and they're asking, please give us some more service. So this is Purushakara, Pumartha, where you're always wanting to serve the Supreme Lord or the spiritual master or the devotees. Correct. And then if you remember last time, towards the end, we started talking about Sugriv Sharanagati, and which is what we need to continue today. So that's why I'm doing a brief recap. So in Sugriv Sharanagati, we discussed how there are the divine and the human lessons. The divine lesson is that there is the tendency of the servant of the Lord to forget service and engage in sense enjoyment. Okay. But the Lord sends his spiritual master, the Lakshman, to remind us of the service, and Hanumanji also. Right. So initially so this is one aspect that we saw last time in great detail. Correct. So where Hanumanji is also telling that you have done a very big mistake, so please go and beg forgiveness. So Hanumanji is also telling him, Krita aparadasya hi te anyata pashyami aham kshamam. So basically, antarena anjalim vadva lakshmanasya prasadana. So this is actually, this 432:17 is a verse spoken by Hanumanji to Sugriv. He's telling Sugriv that please fold your hands and go. So this is the divine aspect. But interestingly, the story has a human lesson also. And what is the human lesson? The human lesson is that in friendship, you can't be too forceful with your friend. So because Sugriv did Sharanagati as a friend, so Lord Ramachandra also had to maintain that decorum of friendship. So we see how sensitive he is. Ramachandra initially tells Lakshman to go and tell Sugriv that the path by which Vali has gone is not yet closed, right? So he tells him that Ma Vali Patamanvaga. But then he immediately tells him that no, don't do that. So don't speak very harshly to him. So he tones it down also. But then what happens, Lakshman, he doesn't tone down. He goes away in an angry mood. And we saw how Sugriv, he is saying that, hey, come on, it's okay. I do agree that I may have overstepped, but it is not so unoffending, right? Yadi kinchid atikrantam vishwasat pranayena va preshyasya kshamittavyasme na kaschidya pradyati. So it's not that, I need to be so much held accountable for whatever has happened. So there was that thing also in Sugriv. So on one hand, Sugriv did feel bad that he forgot the service to Ram. But at the same time, Sugriv did not like the fact that Lakshman came in a very angry mood. So that part also he did not. So both aspects are there, right? So that the second aspect is the human aspect. Okay, so then we also see that Lakshman begs forgiveness from Sugriv. Look at that verse on the screen, 4:36:20. I think this is where we stopped last time. Yatacha shoka abhibhutasya shrutva ramasya bhashitam maya tam purushani ukta tata kshamasva sakhe mama. Oh friend, on hearing that which was spoken by Rama, who is downhearted in his anguish, I too reflexively spoke bitterly to you, and whatever I spoke may be pardoned. So basically, Lakshman is also begging forgiveness. because he's basically telling Sugriv that I immediately at that point of time I felt very angry because I'm seeing Lord Rama's condition, but I shouldn't have been so angry with you. So please forgive me, he says. Now here is where we need to continue our discussion. So till this much we had done last time. Okay. So starting our today's theme, which is a continuation of last time, so continuing the story because we had not completed it. So the reason is, why did Lakshman feel like this? Why did Lakshman feel that he should beg forgiveness to Sugriv? Okay, so there is a history behind that. The history behind that was with Bharata, something similar had happened. Okay, so with Bharata, what had happened was, we all know that when Bharata came to Chitrakoot with an army and Lord Ram sent Lakshman on top of a tree to see who is coming, Lakshman climbed the tree, and when he saw Bharata's army, he immediately started chastising Bharat to Ram, saying that, oh, I'm going to kill him now, and he has come to fight with you, but I'm not going to allow all this. So without even waiting for Bharat to actually come and indicate his purpose of visit, Lakshman had concluded that he's coming to fight. And this was also again out of deep love and affection for Lord Ram that Lakshman did whatever he did. Correct. So this is what we see very clearly. Right. So then, so that is why it is said that, when Bharat, when Lord Ram, when he saw that, so when Lord Ram, he saw that Lakshman has become very angry with Bharat, so Ram speaks some statement which actually frightens Lakshman a lot. Please look at that. So that is 297, 17 and 18. Yedi rajyasya hetoho tvam imam vacham prabhashase vakshyami bharatam drishtva rajyam asmau pradiyata. So basically Ram is telling Lakshman that, hey Lakshman, if you want the kingdom and because of that you're speaking such harsh words against Bharat, saying that you will fight with him, kill him and so on, then don't worry. I will tell Bharat when I meet him to give the kingdom to you. And Uchyamano hi Bharato maya Lakshmana tatvatah rajyam asmai prayagacha iti bhadam itya eva vakshyati. And basically he tells that Bharat will immediately obey my command and he will give you the kingdom and you can be happy with the kingdom. So basically Ram, tells Lakshman that you can become the king and you can enjoy. Now, this was actually too much for Lakshman to take, that he is wanting to fight with Bharat and kill him or whatever, just so that he can become the king of Ayodhya. So when Ram spoke this, Lakshman actually became very frightened, it is said. And that is why in this context also what happens with Sugriv is, because Lakshman had come here, because Ram had warned him that don't be too angry also with him. And Lakshman, out of his love for Ram, he ends up becoming too angry. And when he realizes from the mouth of Sugriv itself that I have become too angry, he immediately apologizes. So it's a very amazing, sweet human behavior, if you see, where there is the devotee feeling also that there is the love for Ram, because of which he is becoming angry against someone. But at the same time, he is very conscious of what Ram had told him, not only now, but even previously. In the example of Bharat also, Ram had told him that don't be so angry, otherwise I will tell Bharat to give you the kingdom and you go and enjoy. Okay, so that is something that Lakshman was always fearful about, losing that position which he had. Okay, now another very interesting thing is, it is said that the Sugriv, when he heard, when Sugriv, when he noticed that Lakshman has become so angry and, that Ram had also sent him to scold him or chastise him, he begged forgiveness from Ram. That part is there in the Ramayana. But at the same time, it is very clear from the verses also, like Sugriv himself says, that he had this sense in his mind that why did these two brothers shout at me so much? Why did they become so angry with me? I agree, I may have made a small mistake, but it was always there in my mind that I want to serve Ram by helping him in his mission to find Sita. So it is not that I had completely forgotten, just that the rainy season was there, so I was having a good time with my family or whatever. So this was Sugriv's thought process, which he says also. So the question is, when did his relationship with Ram become perfect again? So it is said that you have to fast forward that to the Yuddha Kand in Ramayana. So the story is that after Ram and all the monkeys have crossed over to Lanka, and at that point of time, it is said that when they were standing, close to Ravan's palace, it is said that Ravan was standing in one of his balconies. And that time, Vibhishan and others point out to Ram, saying that, hey, look, this is Ravan. And it is said when Sugriv, when he looks at Ravan, he just gets momentarily carried away with anger. And it is said that he jumps from wherever he was standing next to Ram right to that balcony where Ravan was standing. And immediately he started wrestling with him. So that whole wrestling between Sugriv and Ravan is, described in detail in the Ramayana. There's almost an entire chapter that describes that particular episode. So the crux of it is that Sugriv, it is said that his name is Sugriv because he had a very handsome neck. His neck was very beautiful. So Ravan tells him that I will, you have a handsome neck, but I'm going to chop off this neck and, make you without any neck. And it is said both of them start fighting. And Valmiki Muni very beautifully describes their fighting as the fighting between a tiger and a lion. So when a tiger and a lion engage in wrestling, it's very difficult to say who's going to win. So both of them started punching each other, tearing each other, blood was oozing, knocked off each other's helmet. They were rolling on the ground, pounding each other with their fists. And in this way, they were wrestling with each other for a very long time. And it is said, Valmiki Muni describes that their wrestling was like two big cats fighting for a piece of meat, the way they fight. So there was a massive wrestling match that was going on. And it is said at one point of time, Ravan decided to use his magical powers. And Sugriv immediately understood that this fellow is going to use his magical powers now. So what he does, immediately he jumps and he comes back to where Ram was. Okay, so this is the point that we want to elaborate. At that time, when he comes back to Ram, Ram says something very interesting. Please look at that verse. Idanimma krita veera evam vidamaridda tvai kinchit samapanne kim karyam sitaya mama bharatena mahabaho lakshmanena yaviyasa shatrugnena cha shatrugna swasharirena vapunaha. Basically, Lord Ram tells Sugriv that, my dear Sugriv, why did you do this? Idanim ma krita veera, why you are such a brave person? Why did you do such an activity? Because had something happened with you, when you went to fight with Ravan, then I wouldn't have had any pleasure in obtaining Sita back. There was no point, even if my own life is there, Bharat, Lakshman, Sugri, Shatrugna, all of them wouldn't have given me any satisfaction in life. And I would be, completely lost. So this is what Ram says. So Ram tells Sugriv that even my own life or obtaining Sita back wouldn't have pacified me had I lost you. So please do not do this. So it is said that when Sugriv heard this statement from Lord Ram, he actually melted. And it is said this is the point where he melts to such an extent, because both of them are shedding tears. The tears of Lord Ram are falling on Sugriv, and Sugriv is also wetting Lord Ram's feet with his tears. So both of them are crying, and it is at that point that relationship which previously had that relationship of friendship had some kind of problems due to Lakshman becoming angry. It was restored at this point. Okay, so what Ramanujacharya learned in the story, or rather what we all learn, is that relationships in this world are such that you do one major blunder or something, it really takes another investment to repair that previous mistake. So when we do some mistake, even with some close person, we see that that person can become very upset with us, and it takes a lot of investment later to repair, what was previously damaged. And this is an amazing human lesson which is brought out here. Because why it is human? Because the relationship of Ram and Sugriv in the human domain was friendship. In the spiritual domain, it was Sharanagati. But in an ordinary sense, they were basically friends only. Sugriv was, Sugriv had made that fire of friendship. So though the surrender was there as a devotee, but at the same time, on an ordinary level, it was like, because Ram treated him like that. Okay, so this is an amazing lesson for all of us, that any relationship where we may make some mistake, it really takes a lot of effort, or it takes another positive investment to bring that trust back. Otherwise, it simply doesn't come. And that's exactly what you see here. That it's only when Ram exhibited a very high level of relationship in friendship by saying that even if I get Sita back, it would mean nothing to me had I lost you, Sugriv. So please do not behave like this in future. It was only then that Sugriv melted completely in presence of Lord Ram, and he got attracted by his transcendental qualities. Okay, so this is another important lesson here. And there is another interesting observation also, which is made here by Sri Shaila Purna in his teachings, that the two younger brothers, Sugriv and Lakshman, developed some misunderstanding which they had to resolve. Just like Ram and Vali, the two elder brothers, had also developed some misunderstanding. So the beauty of the story is Ram and Vali are both elder brothers, and Sugriv and Lakshman are younger brothers. Okay, so till now we discussed how Lakshman's too much anger against Sugriv had upset Sugriv a little bit, and Sugriv was vocal about it, and Lakshman also begged forgiveness for that. Similarly, it is said even Vali was upset with Ram. Okay, so just like the younger brothers had a problem, the elder brothers also had a problem. And just like the younger brothers' problem was solved, the elder brothers also solved their problem. Okay, so that's also interesting. So the story is, we all know that Vali is killed by Lord Ram in hiding. And it is said that when Vali is killed in hiding, when Lord Ram comes in front of Vali, Vali says many things, but one thing he says is very striking. Hatva balena kakutstha mamiha anaparadhinam kim vakshasi satam madhye karma kritva jugupsitam. So that first part of the second line is very interesting. Vali saying, kim vakshasi satam madhye. How will you be answerable to gentlemen, O Rama, because you have done this? So basically, we understand that culturally for these people, it was so important to do things which you could actually justify to your superiors. Because the idea was that how can you do something which is because when you do something totally wrong, you cannot stand in front of your superiors, because with what face will you stand in front of them? I mean, that only that first part of that second line is actually very interesting culturally. Because culturally, if you see, the cultural context is that each of us should be very sensitive to what we do, thinking, how will I face my superiors if I act in this particular way? So that means if we are doing something wrong, or we go off track with some action. So before doing that, this is a question that everyone should ask. Kim bakshasi satam madhye. When you go to elderly people, satam, gentlemen or elderly people, what will you answer them? Okay, forget. So this is for people with very fine conscience. And Vali is addressing that, telling Ram that, see what you have done. How will you address your superiors? How will you address gentlemen with the act that you did, by killing me in hiding? And the beauty is Ram's actually, so this part of Ramayana is also very interesting. We are not going into this today in detail, because we're just mentioning it as a side point today. But this part of Ramayana is extremely interesting because so many people, even in today's world, find problems with Ram, the way he killed Vali. But if you see in the story, Ram completely patches up with Vali. Completely they patch up. In fact, Ram gives such convincing arguments that Vali perfectly understands what he did was wrong. Okay, what that also indicates is generally by the time you die, or when someone is dying, you're supposed to, you're not supposed to die without repairing your problematic relationships. Please pay attention to this point. It's a very important point that before death, one should repair all one's relationships with everybody. Okay, so otherwise it is said that one has to come back to this world. I mean, this is something we can see in the life of Prabhupada as well. I had spoken of this in detail in my offering last year on Prabhupada disappearance day. How if you see in TKG's diary, you will see this, that Prabhupada in the final months of his departure, he actually wanted to repair, or he wanted to set right all the relationships that he had. And this is something which you would see in that final year of Prabhupada. Like on one hand, he wanted to give wealth and everything and comfort to his former family, like his wife, children, ensure they have some pension so that they live comfortably and all that. Even his former wife, who did not have a proper house, Prabhupada told that she can come and stay in Mayapur temple, so on and so forth. Even with the scientific community, Prabhupada would beg forgiveness to Sarup Damodara, saying that, oh, I called them rascal and so on, which I shouldn't have. Even with his god brothers, with whom he had some managerial differences of opinion on whatever, because of whatever reason, you will see that Prabhupada called them over, begged forgiveness, saying that I was too harsh. And they said that, no, you weren't, you really did something amazing. You fulfilled Mahaprabhu's prophecy. So if you read that last year of Prabhupada, you see this very clearly, that before passing away, he worked to set right all his relationships. And that is something that you will see here in the story of Vali also. Vali, before dying, he sets all those things right. He misunderstands Ram, he begs forgiveness to Lord Ram. First he misunderstands Ram, then Ram convinces him. So for example, if you see those verses, Name tatra manastapo namunya manyu haripungavaha vagurapicha pashaicha kutaicha vividei naraha. I have neither anger, so basically Ram tells Vali that it's not that I have any personal thing against you. It's not that I have a personal anger or, some vengeance against you, why I did this. It was a matter of principle. Okay. And he very nicely explains, Lord Ram, if you see the Valmiki Ramayana, almost 20 verses, very nicely he's telling him why what Vali did was wrong. The kidnapping of Ruma, the throwing away of Sugriv, not forgiving Sugriv, though he had begged forgiveness. All that Ram tells. And then you will see finally in text 46, which is there, he says that, yes, Raghav, I have understood what I did, what I spoke earlier. It was all inappropriate. And I have to take blame for whatever has happened. So this is, and then after this, you will see that Vali begs forgiveness with Sugriv. Vali hands over Angad, his son, to Sugriv and Ram, saying that you all take care of him nicely. He speaks to Tara as well. So you will see that happening. Before dying, all those relationships are mended. Okay, so this is again a very interesting side point here. In relation to human existence. So these are all human lessons actually that we learn, that how misunderstandings have to be clarified, first thing, and second thing is that before you die, you're supposed to rectify your worldly relationships. Otherwise, it is said that one has to come back to this world. So whatever. So that's something that one doesn't want to, right? Okay. So now we spoke all this in the context of Sugriv Sharanagati, right? Now we are again going back to Hitam. There is one more point to be mentioned about Hitam. So as I told you, we are kind of little bit moving among the various points. So Tattvam Hitam Purushakara Pumartha Shaishya. So we are again little bit going into Hitam and then we will go to Purushakara today. Okay. So in the context of Hitam Sharanagati, it is said that there are two conditions which if not fulfilled properly, do not yield the perfect benefit of Sharanagati. And this is in the story of Bharata. So now we are moving from Sugriv Sharanagati to Bharata. Because if you see in the Ramayana, all the Sharanagati that happens, in every case of Sharanagati, the Lord is not only giving complete spiritual protection to the devotee, but also whatever material thing that he is aspiring for, he's given that also. Like simple examples, like you see the example of that Kakasura. right? He actually did Sharanagati because he wanted to protect his life. It was not just for spiritual protection. He wanted to protect his life. And Ram protected that also. If you see Lakshman Sharanagati, when Lakshman does Sharanagati to Ram, it is with the intention that he wants to go with him to the forest. Okay, so that Sharanagati is there with some strings attached also. Correct? And Ram fulfills that. If you see the rishis in the forest, when they do Sharanagati praying to Ram that you should kill all these people, this Karadushan and all these Rakshasas, because they are troubling us. And Ram fulfills that. So please try to understand this very important point. So when Sharanagati is being done, it is not that only the so there is a spiritual component to the Sharanagati where there is the mercy of the Lord in sense of the Lord taking that devotee into his service and so on. But there is also some material aspect in that, right? Even the Deva Sharanagati, if you see the first Sharanagati, the Devatas are doing Sharanagati to Lord Ram because they want Ravan to die, correct? So that's why they are doing. So there is something, because the idea is that as long as you're in this material world, there will be something that is troubling you also in your service. And when a person goes to the Lord crying for help, he wants he wants that pain also to go. Correct? Like Dhruva did Sharanagati in the Bhagavatam. He wanted a kingdom basically. But so generally the idea is that when a devotee does Sharanagati, the Lord fulfills his wishes also. Right? In all these cases, you see, Sugriva did Sharanagati. Why did he do? Because he wanted his wife back. He wanted his kingdom back. Uske liye kiya unhone, at least in an external worldly sense. And Ram fulfilled that. Ram ensured that Sugriv gets his wife and kingdom back. Right? And besides that, he gave him service at his lotus feet. So like this, you will see in every story. Okay, but there is only one story in the Ramayana where you will see that a devotee is doing Sharanagati, but immediately what that person wants is not granted. And that is the story of Bharata. Because when Bharat does Sharanagati to Lord Ram, he is doing it in the Chitrakoot. Not just, I mean, he obviously wants to re-emphasize or ensure that his position as a servant at the feet of Lord Ram is guaranteed. But besides that, he's also doing because he wants Ram to come back and rule for 14 years. Correct? We all know that. That's the immediate reason why he goes. Correct? He's going there and falling at the feet of Lord Ram because he wants Ram to come back to Ayodhya and take over as the king and not stay in this forest for 14 years. That's the immediate reason. But then we know that Ram doesn't do that. In fact, Ram gives the Paduka. We will discuss that story again in detail a little later. But Ram doesn't immediately grant it. So the question is why he doesn't grant Bharata's Sharanagati. So one reason we all know is the external reason that if we would have granted Bharata's wish, then the Deva Sharanagati wouldn't get fulfilled. Because the Deva Sharanagati was there, right? The Devatas had done Sharanagati. And what was their purpose of Sharanagati? That Ravan has to be killed. And Ram is going to the forest to fulfill that desire. Because unless he goes to the forest and does whatever he did there, that wouldn't happen. Correct? The Deva Sharanagati wouldn't get fulfilled. But then the lesson here they say is that no, it's not just that. Because if Ram wanted to kill Ravan, he could have always found another reason to go to the forest and something else to happen so that Ravan is eventually killed. It was not necessary that 14 years he has to sit there just so that Ravan can be killed. So that is not the reason. So they say that Bharat Sharanagati, that immediate request of Bharat, that Ram has to come back and not stay in the forest for 14 years was not granted because there was some small problem in the Sharanagati of Bharata. I mean, this is obviously so that all of us can learn. Okay. So what is that problem? Okay. So the lesson is that two important conditions of Sharanagati weren't fulfilled. So this is what Sripad Ramanujacharya learned. What was the first condition? The first condition of Sharanagati is that you should be confident that your Sharanagati will work. Okay, so please hear this attentively. So if somebody does Sharanagati to the Lord and has a doubt in his mind, ye hoga kya? Will my Sharanagati work? Then it is said that it will not work. So that means you can't have a plan B. that if I do Sharanagati to Ram and if it does not work, then maybe I will try something else. So if you remember last time also we mentioned this, that Sharanagati to the Supreme Lord, like Sharanagati to the Supreme Lord means that one is completely convinced that there is absolutely no other way for me. So I mean there is no plan B or anything like that. Correct? So this is a very important aspect of Sharanagati. Sorry, just light went away here. Okay. So then, so what happens in this particular case? So it is said that when Bharat is speaking to Vasishtha and other sages, before they actually come to the forest to meet Lord Ram, and there is this verse. Have a look at this on the screen. Yaditu aryam na shakyami vinivartayitum vanat vane tatra eva vatsyami yata aryo lakshmana tata. So basically, Bharata, before going to the forest, he is telling Vasishtha and other sages, if I am unable to bring back my elder brother from the forest, I shall stay in the forest like how Lakshman is staying now. So basically, by making such a statement, it is said that Bharata himself had this feeling that maybe the Lord will not grant my wish. So please pay attention to this. So because Bharat made the statement, right? The statement is made by Bharat only to Vasishtha in the Ramayana. So by making the statement that if Ram doesn't come back, then I will stay in the forest like Lakshman is staying. By making this statement, what happens is Bharat is indicating his own feeling that the purpose for which I am going to the forest may not get accomplished. Rama may not come back. Okay, so the point is that if you do Sharanagati with this slight feeling in your mind that maybe my Sharanagati, the purpose for which, so if you remember in Sharanagati, that famous verse also, Anukulyasya Sankalpa Pratikulyasya Vashano, Raksha Shishiti Vishwasa, that complete confidence that for whatever purpose I'm going to the Lord. Are you getting this? So there has to be that 100% confidence that the Lord is going to protect me. And whatever my desires are going to get fulfilled. But this is so in Ramayana, in all other Sharanagatis, you will see that for whatever purpose the devotee went to the Lord, it was always fulfilled, except in Bharata's case, it was not fulfilled. As in, at least for 14 years, it wasn't, because Ram refused to come back, though Bharata did that Sharanagati. And this is one reason it is mentioned, that he himself had a doubt in his mind that Ram may not come back. Okay, so it is said that if you have that feeling, then Ram says that, yes, maybe then that is only true. I will really not come back. So that's first thing. So this indicates the, what shall I say, the seriousness of this matter, that a devotee is expected to Sharanagati with that 100% confidence that the Lord will protect me, not that the Lord may not protect me. And right, that's why we tell the story of the Draupadi also. Anyway, I'm not going to that. So this is one reason, but there's a second, more serious reason it is said, and that is speaking harshly or kind of becoming a little angry with the Lord's devotees, which basically is something like what we call Vaishnava Aparadha. So what happens basically is that in the Ramayana, when Bharata comes over and after Dasharatha's final rites are done, Vasishtha is telling Bharat to take over the kingdom because that is what he had to do. Vasishtha was the minister, was the royal sage, and it was his duty to ensure that someone is ruling over Ayodhya. So he tells Bharat that you should start ruling the kingdom now because things have to be done. Right? Your father has departed, there is no king, so somebody has to take over the chair. So he tells him. But at that time, it is said Bharata becomes angry with Vasishtha. So look at that verse over there, 282:10. 2 means please note Ayodhya Kand, chapter 82, text 10. Sabhashpa kalaya vacha kalahamsa swara yuva vilapa sabha madhye jagrihe cha purohita. Jagrihe means he actually got angry with the purohita. Purohita in this context is Vasishtha. So what happened? The youthful Bharata, with the voice of a Hamsa bird in the midst of the assembly, was lamenting, he was tearful, and in an appealing speech, he even reproached. Reproached means he kind of scolded, shouted at the royal priest as follows. Then there are some verses that come where he says that, how can you ask me to do this and so on. So the point here is that even in a very trying situation, one is not allowed to be angry or shout at a devotee of the Lord. So let's understand that Vashishta is a great soul. He is not an ordinary person, right? He's not just some ordinary minister or something. He's a great devotee. He's a great yogi. He's very dear to Lord Ram. He's the teacher of Ram, Lakshman, Bharata, Shatrugna in their childhood. He's someone who has done great service at the feet of the Lord. And it is true that Bharat was very emotional at this point in the story because he was aghast to hear that his mother was the cause of all this. She had sent Ram and Lakshman and Sita to the forest for 14 years and all this happened. So he was aghast and he was having his own emotional feelings related to it. But at the same time, what we are learning, it's a very high lesson that no matter what, you cannot become upset and start scolding devotees. You cannot do that. And if so, these two things are concerned, are said to be the lacuna or what was lacking in the Sharanagati of Bharata, because of which Ram did not immediately take that request of coming back. He said that, no, I will stick to my 14-year thing. So, this is one of the reasons. Of course, there are other reasons, but this is one of the reasons. Okay, so this is a lesson for all of us that in our Sharanagati also, these two aspects we should never forget, that we have complete faith in the Lord, that the Lord will do, what is best for us. And we have that confidence that our prayers will be answered. And the second thing being that we at no point of time, even if we are overcome by emotion, we will scold or shout at the devotees of the Lord. I mean, we may be emotional due to our own mess in the world, but we have no right to scold and chastise the devotees of the Lord. So this is another lesson related to Hitam. Okay. So now let's go to what I thought is the main topic of discussion, which we are beginning today. Of course, this will continue for one more class next time. And that is Purushakara. So Purushakara literally means, as we discussed, Purushakara means recommendation. That means you need the recommendation of Pirati or Sita Devi for anything to happen. Without her recommendation, without her mercy, nothing is going to be achieved. Okay, so this is a Hare Krishna. Yeah. Is someone else's audio on? Because Chakrapani Prabhu, can you just Saragra Prabhu, can you just mute everyone so that, yeah, thank you. Yeah. So Purushakara, the recommendation of Sita Devi, how important it is. Okay, and the first story of Purushakara, interestingly, is the story when Sita Devi is adamant that she wants to come to the forest along with Lord Ramachandra. Okay, so this story happens, as we know, in the Ayodhya Kand, when Ram comes and tells Sita that he has to go to the forest for 14 years and Bharat is going to rule instead. So Ram initially has no plan to take Sita Devi along with him to the forest, but we know how Sita Devi manages to convince him. And that part of the Ramayana itself is considered as the Purushakara. That means the manifestation of mercy of Sita Devi. Now, how is it that we will see very soon? Okay, so we'll have to spend some time exploring this part of the Ramayana. So let's look at some verses first to indicate how Sita Devi was so adamant on going with Lord Ram to the forest. And then we will discuss why she was adamant. Okay, so the first part is how she was adamant and then why she was adamant. Because that connection will help us understand the Purushakara or this particular recommendation of Sita Devi, which is mandatory for everyone to become a Sharanagata Bhakta. Okay, so the first part is, so it's a very beautiful section. In fact, again, in those series of 4 chapters, if you see, chapter 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, actually there are 5 chapters in Ayodhya Kand. where there is this discussion between Ram and Sita about whether or not she should go to the forest. Okay. And the Acharyas here explain that one of the names of Lord Ram is called as Virama. So if you know in Vishnu Sahasranama it comes Ramo Viramo Virato Margo Neo Neo Neha. Virama. Viramaha means actually full stop, if you see in one way. I think in Hindi also they use Viram to indicate full stop. Okay. So why Ram's name is Virama, it is said is because if you couldn't debate with Ram, if somebody starts arguing with Lord Ram, he will put a full stop to all your arguments. Okay, so if you see the Ramayana, if you take several discussions, like for example, if you see the discussion where Dasharath is trying to tell Ram not to go to the forest, or if you see the discussion between Bharata and Ram, or if you see the discussion between the Jabali, right? Jabali is preaching atheism at some point of time there. If you see Vali's discussion with Ram, if you see when Vibhishan comes to do Sharanagati, that time Ram is asking the opinion of all the monkeys. After everyone has said whatever they wanted to say, Ram is saying what he wants to say. And when Ram says what he wants to say, that is full stop. Nobody can say anything. Because it's not that Ram is just dominant or anything, but he puts his point so nicely that nobody can defeat it. So that's why the name, one of the names of Lord Ram is Viramaha. So he puts a full stop to everything. But it is said that there is only one place, majorly, where Ram is unable to put a full stop. Okay, and that is in this context with Sita Devi. Okay, other way speaking, he becomes Virama. That means he has to only stop his own point where he's trying to tell Sita not to come with him. Okay, so he himself becomes Virama, kind of. But in all other cases, he emphasizes. So that again, there is a human lesson also, that a man may be good at convincing everybody in the world, but maybe with his own wife, it doesn't work so well. Okay, so that is also being discussed. Okay, so in these chapters, what happens is you will see that Sita Devi is initially, she says, there are some very beautiful verses in the Ramayana. If you see the 27th chapter, where I've picked up a couple of verses, you see on the screen. Na pita na atmajo na atma na mata na saki janaha iha pretya sa narinam patireko gati sada. Beautiful verse. What a verse. To a woman, Sita is saying, father, son, self, mother, female companion are not the recourse. Husband alone is forever the best recourse, either in this world or after her death. She basically says that there's no point, Ram, that I will stay here and serve Kaushalya, Dasharath, and all that. It doesn't happen. For a woman, none of these relatives are very important as much as the husband. And I need to be with you only wherever you are in this world. It's a very beautiful verse. Socially, the context is amazing. Also, this verse is very interesting. I think I mentioned some classes before also that a couple of years back, it truly happened. There was, it had come in news as well. There was this interesting case where a central government employee was transferred from Mumbai to Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And his wife divorced him. And she had, when the matter came to court, she told the judge that my husband has got transferred to Andaman and Nicobar and I don't want to go there. I want to be in Mumbai with my friends. Hence, that is the reason for my divorce. So the judge actually told her this verse from Ramayana, saying that why don't you learn something from Sita's character and go wherever your husband is and just enjoy life like that? Why do you want to divorce for such a reason? At least I was very happy when I read that. I thought that even our judges know these verses from the Ramayana. At least they have some background of it. Okay, so it's a very beautiful verses. So similarly, there are so many other beautiful verses that she says. She says her spirit of service. Yaditvam prasthita dhurkam vana madhya eva raghava agrate gamishyami mridayanti kusha kantakan. She basically says, oh Ram, as you go into the forest, there will be thorns, stones, everything, and I will walk in front, I will crush them so that you can walk comfortably. Her service spirit. So this is not just as a wife, but because there is a devotee also in Sita. So that aspect is also there. And then when all this doesn't work, so again, the womanly qualities also come out. because a woman initially she may tell her husband some plain arguments, but when that doesn't work, then she can become angry. So that's the next step. And then finally she starts crying. So all three weapons are used by Sita. If you see 3 chapters, they're so wonderful. In the first chapter, she is giving all these reasons very logically why she should come according to Shastra and so on. And then she starts getting angry. She basically says, Atacha api mahaprajna brahmanana maya shrutam pura pitrugrihe satyam vastavyam kila mevane. So basically, so sorry, this is not yet angry now. So she gives some other reasons. This is actually astrology. Very interesting. Astrology is also got here. So basically, Sita says that she was destined to live in the forest. That is her bhagya. So she says that when I was in my father's house, some brahmanas had come and they told me that according to my own astrology chart, I am destined to live in the forest. And if you see, it is so true also. Sita, almost all the time she lives in the forest only. Hardly she lives in the kingdom. Right? Even after they come back from Lanka, only 2 years they live together. Again, she has to go to the forest due to some other reason. But Sita's life is prominently in the forest only. And the reason of that is mentioned here also in a way, because everything is again connected to the planets. Correct. So basically, again, look at that other point. She says that Krita Adesha Bhavishyami Gamishyami Sahatvaya Kala Chayam Samupatna Satyavag Bhavatu Dvijaha. So that Brahmana's word had to come true, because that Brahmana was obviously, he was talking about destiny according to astrology. So that has to come true. So I am destined to come to the forest. So all these kind of reasons also she is giving. But none of it seems to work, because Rama is again very cold. He is not interested to take Sita. Ram again speaks many things why he doesn't want to take Sita. But then the 3rd chapter, if you see, now this is actually the 3rd chapter, chapter 30 in their discussion, 3rd or 4th chapter. If you see in that Ayodhya Kand, from chapter 26 to chapter 30, they are talking, both husband and wife are talking. Now you will see that she starts becoming angry. Kim tva amanyata vaideha pita me mithila adipaha Rama jamataram prapya striyam purusha vigraham. She basically says, what did my father think of himself? Jamataram, he thought a son-in-law, he thought this is a man, but actually this is a woman only. So he basically starts scolding Ram that you are not even a man. You are actually a woman in the guise of the man. How can you do this? So then she becomes very emotional. She basically, in fact, this verse is again very beautiful. Idam hi suhitam shokam muhurtam apina utsahe kim puna dasha varshani trini cha ekam cha dukkita. She basically says, idam hi suhitam shokam muhurtam apina utsahe. Even one muhurta, even a moment, I cannot survive away from you. So the Acharya's commentary over here is that when Ram had left Sita and gone to meet Dasharath, we know the story, na? Just before this incident happened, what happens? Ram and Sita are dressing up for the coronation. And at that time, the messenger or whoever comes and calls Ram to Dasharath, to Kaikeyi's chamber. And Ram goes there for one muhurta, where all that talk happens, that Ram has to go to 14 years to the forest and Bharat will become the king and all. And then Ram comes back. So the commentary here is that that muhurta, that particular time, whatever, 45 minutes or whatever, sometimes translated as a moment and sometimes it's called as a little long period of time. So Sita is saying, even that much amount of time in separation of you, I can't live. Kim puna dashavarshani trini cha ekam. Dashavarshani trini ekam means 10 plus 3 plus 1. Okay, that means 14 years. 14 years, how can I live away from you? I cannot. And then finally, itisa shoka samtapta vilapya karunam bahu chukrosha patitam ayatsa brishama alingya swaram saswaram alingya. So basically she starts crying and she starts embracing Lord Ram. It is at that time that Ram says that, okay, you come with me. Okay, so it took so much of convincing of Sita. Okay, now the question is, now how is this connected to Purushakara? So please note, we are talking about Purushakara over here. So how is this Purushakara? Because what Ramanacharya understood from Sri Shaila Purna is that why was Sita Devi so adamant to go to the forest? So that's the question really. Why was Sita Devi so adamant to go to the forest? And the reason he learned is that Sita Devi was so adamant to go to the forest because she wanted to give her mercy along with Lord Ram to everyone in the forest and all those places that they travel. All the rishis in the forest, all the monkeys, Vibhishan, Lankavasis, the Devatas who wanted Ravan to be killed. All these people had to get the mercy of Lord Ram, right? And unless Sita Devi went with Lord Ram to the forest, how would all that get accomplished? None of it would get accomplished. None of these people would receive the mercy of the Lord. And we will see verses also later, one by one. We will see all those verses where it very clearly comes that it was because of Sita alone that these people received mercy of Lord Ram. So the understanding here is that Sita Devi was not adamant to go to the forest just as a, like a normal wife wants to go with the husband somewhere. It's not just that. Of course, that is there in a human level. You can take that lesson that the wife should like to live with the husband. That's a human level lesson. But the higher dimensional principle is that Sita is adamant to go to the forest or adamant to be with Ram so that she can show mercy to everybody. And the proof of that is in the next chapter itself, the 31st chapter, and that begins very beautifully. Look at the first two verses of the 31st chapter, which is Lakshman Sharanagati. Look at the first two verses. We'll spend some time analyzing that. Evam shrutva tu sambadam Lakshmana purvamagataha bashpaparya kulamukah shokam sodum shaknuvan Sabratuscharano gadam nipidhya raghunandanaha Sitamuvacha itishyam Raghavam cha mahavratam. So these are the opening verses of the 31st chapter of the Ayodhya Kand. And what do you see here? So let's analyze this. Evam shrutva tu samvadam Lakshmana purvamagataha. So the first thing it says is, this samvada between Ram and Sita was heard by whom? Lakshman. Lakshman heard it. Okay. And what happened when he heard it? When he heard it, there were tears in his eyes and he was unable to bear the anguish. Shokam, Sodum Shaknuvan. So please try to understand what is going on in Lakshman's mind. So first of all, the commentary here is that, so let's go word by word. Evam Shrutva. So Lakshman was hearing. So it is said that Lakshman, he's a Sesha Nag, right? So Sesha Nag means snake. And it is said the snake's sense of hearing is very powerful. Perhaps all of us know that. So that's why snake, it is said that like if you see the snake charmer, he is playing that instrument and the snake is dancing, right? Because it is said that a sense of hearing, the snake's sense of hearing is very powerful. So Lakshman's sense of hearing was very powerful. And though he was not present in the same place where Ram and Sita were talking, he was standing somewhere outside. Evam Shrutva, he heard everything. And the second thing it is said here is Samvadam. He heard the Samvad. Generally speaking, when a man and woman, when they fight, it is called Vivad. It is not called Samvad. Samvad is generally like a pleasant conversation. Right? If you see the verse here, it says, Evam Shrutva tu Samvadam. Lakshman heard that Samvad. But actually, they were fighting in one sense, right? I mean, they were quarreling. I mean, she was crying. They generally, when a husband-wife, when the wife is crying, saying that you're a eunuch or you're a woman, and the husband is saying that, no, I don't want to take you. When all this kind of drama is happening, we generally called it as a vivad. But Valmiki Muni calls it samvad. Why he calls it samvad? Because it is said that Ram and Sita did this whole drama just so that Lakshman can be immediately moved. See, because please try to understand what is happening in Lakshman's mind. Why is Lakshman crying? Look at that second line of the first verse. Bashpa Pariya Kula Mukaha Shokam Sodum Shaknuvan. That means he started crying and lamenting. Now the question is, why is Lakshman crying? Lakshman is crying because he is thinking, if Sita had to speak so much to Lord Ram to convince him to take her to the forest, how much more I will have to work to convince Ram? Correct? If Ram is not ready to take his wife, why will he agree to take me? Okay, and Sita is doing so much to convince him to take her. तो मेरा क्या होगा अभी? So thinking about this, Lakshman is crying. So that's the beauty in this verse, right? So Lakshman is simply thinking that, Arey, my God, what did I just witness? This husband and wife, they are talking so much about this, and so much effort Sita had to make to convince Ram to take him to the forest. So mera kya hoga abhi? So that is why what he does, Sabratush Charanam Gadam Nipiti Raghunandane. He falls at the feet, Sita Muvacha, and he addresses Sita and Raghava together. That's the essence of the second verse. Okay, so he's falling at the feet of Ram, but obviously Sita is also standing there, and Sita is Bhabi, Bhaiya and Bhabi. So he's in the material, in the external world relationship, and of course eternal relationship too. So he's falling at their feet and he is addressing them. Okay. So the idea here is, so what you understand here is that immediately Sita's thought process worked. Please try to understand the previous five chapters of Ayodhya Kand. Why was Sita adamant to go with Lord Ram to the forest? So that she can give mercy to everyone. Because she can give mercy only, because Ram can give mercy only if Sita is there next. Otherwise, it doesn't work so well, right? So you need Purushakara, you need the recommendation, or you need the grace of the goddess of fortune to get the mercy of the Supreme Lord, right? So the proof of what happened in the previous five chapters is there immediately in the Ramayana. That immediately Lakshman comes and falls at the feet, and he gets it. He gets it because the beauty of Lakshman Sharanagati is that Lakshman doesn't have to work so hard as Sita did to convince Ram. In fact, you will see that there are only some 15-20 verses. Ram just mildly tells him, why don't you serve Sumitra? But Lakshman says, no, 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 I want to serve both you. Again, he invokes Janaki. In fact, 2-3 times in that section, he tells Sita, Ram, Raghava, Janaki, Rama. So he's basically addressing Ram along with the goddess of fortune. Hence, his Sharanagati achieves fulfillment very quickly. And this is the purpose for which Sita Devi was so adamant to go to the forest, because she knew that only if I go along with him, his task of giving mercy to everyone is going to get fulfilled. Because when I go, it's all going to work. And the proof of that is immediately seen in the Ramayana, right? Evam Shrutva to Samvadam. When he heard it, the Samvadam. Then another thing that is said, generally husband-wife ka Samvad nobody should hear. Okay, so this is another commentary that the acharyas, they bring out here, that husband and wife, when they talk to each other, especially when they're fighting also, it is said nobody should come in the middle. Okay, there is a famous verse of Chanakya also. When two goats are fighting, or when the clouds are rumbling in a particular Sarat Ritu, or when some Brahman is talking about how grand he will do the Shraddha of his father, or when a husband and wife are fighting, don't take all this seriously. So it is said that in all these things, like two goats are fighting, it seems as if it's a very important problem. But then very quickly they disperse. The cloud is making big sound in that particular season, but nothing is going to come. There's no going to be no rain in that season. So only there is a noise of the thunder and so on. Okay, similarly, now this example, most of us may culturally not relate, but traditionally the Shraddha is to be done with great detail. Generally, the scriptures say that one should do the Shraddha of one's forefathers in a very elaborate way. That's considered good. So generally, a man initially he thinks that I will do it very elaborately. But by the time the event comes, he cuts shorts everything. He thinks that, oh, this is very difficult, this is very difficult. And finally, he does something very small. Okay, so I mean, culturally, most of us may not be able to relate to this example because we have not seen this, but this is what Chanakya also talks about. Similarly, the husband-wife fight also. It may seem as if they are fighting, and it may seem as if this is a very serious argument, but very soon they patch up also. Hence, we should not take it too seriously. A third person shouldn't take that very seriously. But Lakshman, he was watching all this. So generally, you should not watch, but still he was watching. Okay, because their fight had a purpose. Because the purpose of that so-called conflict of Sita and Ram was just so that how they can Raghavam cha Mahavratam. So he's addressing Sita and Ram together. And then again you see that, right? You see that, see just the verse 25. So hardly 25 verses are there where Lakshman is talking to Ram. Look at the 25th verse. Vasam tu saha vaidehya giri sanusha ramsyate. Aham sarvam karishyami jagrata swapataschate. Lakshman is saying that you please enjoy yourself with Vaidehi in the forest, in the mountains. I will do everything, Jagrata Swapata. Whether it is being awake or sleeping, I will take care of everything in the forest. Don't worry at all. So again, the point is he invokes Vaidehi. You see that first line in that verse. He says, Vasam tu saha Vaidehya. Along with Vaidehi, you enjoy yourself in the forest and I will serve you. And if you see the next verse, Ram says, Rama tu anena vakyena suprita pratyuvachatam vraja aprachaswa saumitre sarvam eva suhruja janam. He basically tells that, don't worry, Lakshman, you come with me. Just go and tell all your friends that you are going to the forest. Pack up, basically, he tells. So Lakshman did not have to work too much. And the reason he did not have to work too much is he did Sharanagati to Sita and Ram. So that is Purushakara. So Lakshman is considered the first recipient of Purushakara. That means the mercy of the goddess of fortune was first given to Lakshman. Right, and that's the amazing part of why Sita was so adamant to go to the forest. Okay, and then we will end with this part. This is the last slide for today. All Sharanagati, as I said, in the Ramayana is due to presence of Sita only. Okay, we'll just take some brief examples today, but we will elaborate this later. So if you see the first picture in the slide is about that Indra's son Jayanta, right? His Sharanagati. It is because Sita Devi was there. His life was spared, and he also got Sharanagati at the feet of Ram. Jatayu also, if you see, Jatayu, there is a very beautiful description, not just in the Valmiki Ramayana, but in the Kamba Ramayana. The Kamba Ramayana is a Tamil Ramayana, where basically it is said that so initially it is said in the Kamba Ramayana, this detail comes, that Sita Devi tells Jatayu initially that you please give the message to Ram that I have been kidnapped like this. But Jatayu does much more than that. Right, so though Sita had only asked him to give the message, he actually volunteers to fight. And it is said when he dies and he falls down, Sita takes Jatayu on her lap and caresses him, Jatayu. And then by that time, Ravana abducts her and takes her away. But it is said that this service that Jatayu did to Sita was never going to go in vain. So that is why it is said later when Lord Ram comes, look at that verse. Raja Dasharatha Shriman Yata Mama Maya Yashaha Pujaniya Chamanya Cha Tata Ayam Patageshwaraha. So basically, Lord Ram says that you are to be treated by me just like Dasharatha. Mama Maya Yashaha. So Ramayacharya, what he learned in this verse is that Maya means Mahalakshmiya. And Shriman is also there in this verse. If you see Shriman means one who has received the benediction of the goddess of fortune. So basically both these words are very greatly elaborated here. This word Shriman, which indicates the mercy of the goddess of fortune, and Maya. Maya means, in one sense, Maya means due to me. But another explanation of Maya is Mahalakshmiya, is shortened as Maya. So Mahalakshmiya means because of the mercy of Mahalakshmi, that is Sita Devi. Right? Because you have received that mercy of Sita Devi, you are worshipable by me. Pujaniya, Lord Ram tells Jatayu. So the point is, so this is how it is. So that anything anyone received, any mercy received by anybody, later if you see in the Ramayana, okay, whether it is Trijata, whether it is the Kishkinda, whether it is Vibhishan. About Vibhishan also it is said that when Vibhishan came in the sky, Antariksha Gata Shriman, it is said. Antariksha Gata Shriman means in the Antariksha, in the sky, Shriman Vibhishan was there. Shriman means what? One who has received the mercy of Shri. How was the connection? The connection was Trijata. Trijata was the daughter of Vibhishan, and we will cover this story later, but Trijata is very devotionally inclined, and she is in fact telling all the Rakshasis that none of you should trouble Sita too much, because if you trouble Sita, later you are going to be in trouble. So please let us all take shelter of Sita Devi. So this is spoken by Trijata to all the Rakshasis. So there is this verse in the Ramayana where Trijata tells everybody that we should all surrender to Sita Devi and we should not trouble her like this. And it is said the other Rakshasis don't even surrender, but Sita Devi gives protection to everybody. And Trijata was none other than the daughter of Vibhishana. So though externally they had not yet met, it is said that he had already got the mercy of Sita Devi through his daughter. And that is why the verse says, Antariksha Gata Shriman. When Vibhishan came to surrender to Lord Ram, he's called as Shriman Vibhishan. And Shriman again means one who has received the benediction of Sita Devi. Okay. So mainly today we discussed this topic of Purushakara. Purushakara means to receive the mercy of the goddess of fortune. So another thing which is spoken, which I'll just be very brief today, maybe we will talk about it a little bit detail later, is the Shri Shruti, Shri Sukti, and descriptions of the Shri Vaishnavas in this context, because we were talking about what Ramanujacharya learned from his uncle, Sri Shaila Purna, is that Sita Devi or Mahalakshmi or Lakshmi in general is such that her mercy is not only in terms of her service to Lord Ram or to give you that the ultimate benediction of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but it is said that she is also very concerned that the devotee in this world also lives very peacefully. So that is why it is said that this whole concept of Ashtalakshmi exists. Ashtalakshmi, all of you must have heard, like Adi Lakshmi, Dhana Lakshmi, Vidya Lakshmi, Dhanya Lakshmi, Santana Lakshmi. So there is 8 Lakshmis. And the understanding is that each of these 8 Lakshmis, the Adi Lakshmi is the one who actually gives one the ultimate spiritual benefit. But these other Lakshmis who are there, like if you see this, like the example of Vidya Lakshmi. So Vidya Lakshmi is, she is considered the Lakshmi who is the consort of Hayagriva, right? So we know this Lord Hayagriva is there. So when Hayagriva is worshipped by anybody, he is worshipped along with his consort, and his consort is Vidya Lakshmi. So basically, one gets the benediction of good education as well in this world. Okay, so similarly, Santana Lakshmi, children. So the idea is that Lakshmi Devi, her position is such that she wants to ensure that the devotee in this world also is comfortably placed, so that in this world also he can serve Narayan nicely and later ultimately come back to the feet of Lord Narayan as well. Okay, so with this we will stop. We will stop with this Dhyana Shloka once again. Vaidehi sahitam suradrumatale heme mahamandape madhye pushpakamasane manimaye virasane sustitam agre vachayati prabanjana sute tattvam munibhyah param Vyakyantam Bharatadipih Paribrijam Ramam Bhaje Shyamalam. So the verse from the Brahmanda Puran spoken by Lord Shiva to Parvati about the mood in which we meditate on Lord Ram. So the beauty here again is Vaidehi Sahitam. So he is always with Vaidehi. Okay, and I think that was our theme for today. Okay, Hare Krishna. So if there are any questions, then we can take, or any comments with which we stop. Yeah, I think someone is saying that Alpa Viram Purna Viram. Okay, yeah, thank you. Vaibhavanand Prabhu. Okay, Dinamada Chaitanya Prabhu, you had a question? Please go ahead.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you for the very wonderful presentation. So I think, so in the initial part, you mentioned that Ramanujacharya 18 times he went to Tirupati, and every time he heard the entire Ramayana from Shaila Purna. And then I think you also said every time it was a different theme also. So I mean, like each time all the 24,000 verses, and along with that a particular theme. Is it like that? what you mean?
Yeah, like that. Like these 18 topics that we're discussing now, each is a theme. So the first one is Tattvam. Tattvam means how Lord Ram is a supreme absolute truth. So one reading of Ramayana, you focus completely on how Lord Ram is supreme absolute truth everywhere. Second theme of Ramayana is Sharanagati. So beginning to end, as you're reading the Ramayana, you read the same Ramayana, but with the understanding that Sharanagati is the focus of Ramayana. The third is Purushakarya. That means you read the whole Ramayana, understanding that the mercy of Goddess of Fortune is what is needed if you want to obtain the lotus feet of Lord Ram. Like that. So each time he read the whole Ramayana with one lesson in focus. And those are those 18 lessons that we are trying to talk of. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji, yes. And the other thing was, so this pastime of Lakshman getting disproportionately angry with Sugriva. So you took out the human lesson from that. So I was just remembering you mentioned a few, I think, classes back that, Maharaj once said that even out of love, you can offend some great Vaishnava. Like I think you quoted the example of, if I'm not wrong, Kirtanand Maharaj and Sridhar Maharaj of the Gaudiya Mutt. So in Mayapur, there was this meeting, and then there was something spoken harshly, and then Sridhar Maharaj was crying like a baby, and then Maharaj says that I was praying that this offense is forgiven. So I mean, like I'm just trying to understand that, do we see that when we see the human part of the human lesson here, we understand we should not be like out of love for somebody we may offend someone else, but then like in that sense we are also seeing, I mean, like a fault in Lakshman himself. So how do we see the human lesson that way?
Yeah, good. So the thing is, we are doing that because the acharyas have got that lesson for us. They have got that lesson. See, now that's where we have to be careful that all these characters are behaving at different levels, right? We say Adi Devik, Ati Bhautik, Adhyatmik. So there are three different types of lessons that are coming out. So one is at the spiritual level. So for example, when we say Bharata, what he did, like I spoke that today, right? So these things, because we are not finding fault in Bharata absence. These are the commentaries which basically Yamunacharya taught Sri Shailapurna, who taught it to Ramanujacharya. And we're learning that with the only intention that we should not do that. So the question is not about them. Like, for example, even about Sita, we'll be talking about that. Right. So Sita is compared to the conditioned soul in this world. This is again from one of the lessons which Ramanujacharya learned only. We quote that very often, right? Where she got attracted to the deer, because of which she had to be caught in Lanka, which is a human body. All these lessons are coming from there only. Everything. Because all these lessons are lessons that Yamunacharya and others, they taught to Sri Shailapurna, and Sri Shailapurna says that I have learned it from my Guru Yamunacharya, I am teaching it to you now, Ramanuja. And Ramanujacharya brings it out later, and so it's all coming from there only. So obviously, when we find anything like that, so it's not that we are finding a fault with Sita, because we know. So there is another level where we know that they are just doing a pastime. But at this level, we know that they are acting to teach us a lesson that we shouldn't do that. So we have to be simultaneously conscious of both. That's the point here. I hope that answers. Are you getting it? Because these are not lessons that anybody can bring out themselves, and you can't bring it out with a mood of putting these characters down. Like, for example, modern authors do with our scriptural, like with our scriptures, there are many modern authors who unnecessarily criticize the characters of Ramayana and Mahabharata. But that is not done with a good intention, and neither is it done with intention of with this understanding of multiple levels. But when the acharyas have brought out this lesson, they harmonize that, right? So even though, for example, we spoke about Bharata today, those two things, later you will see when we talk about another point, Bharata's greatness is brought out in a very great extent. So there the greatness of Bharat is being emphasized. But here that lesson is being emphasized, which as humans, as sadhakas, we have to be careful. So ultimately, none of these characters have any fault. if at all it appears that they are depicting something like that, it is only to teach us a lesson. So that's how we take it.
Okay. So we are simultaneously conscious of the human
Yes.
lesson and the supremacy of these characters.
Yeah.
The supreme
Simultaneously we are. That's the benefit of learning from acharyas, right? Otherwise it will just become another mundane discussion where modern authors also criticize all these characters, but they don't take care of these aspects.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other project, the Bharata's first, thing, the apparent fault which you pointed out was, that he says, if I'm unable to bring back my elder brother from the forest, I shall stay back, as how the venerable Lakshman is staying. So, and then you said this is like having a plan B, because,
Yeah.
he was, but then, I was not able to understand why, because, actually, if he did not say this, then that would mean that he's expecting his plan to go, to bring back Ram, to succeed anyway, and that would be a lack of surrender in that sense. So, I don't understand why this should be considered, something sort
I'll
of
just tell you why.
Sharanagati.
I'll just tell you again. So what they say here is, in all other Sharanagatis in the Ramayana, the external material purpose for which the Sharanagati was done is also fulfilled. Correct? You see everything. The Devatas, why did they surrender? They wanted Ravana to be killed. Why did Lakshman surrender? He wanted to go to the forest. Why did Sugriv surrender? He wanted his wife back. Why did the Rishis surrender? Because they wanted that Kharadushan to be killed. So right from beginning to end, if you see, in all cases of Sharanagati, the Lord gives Sharanagati in such a way that their immediate need and prayer is answered. Along with that, that ultimate spiritual protection, that spiritual principle is also there. Correct? But it is only in Bharata's case that for 14 years it was not sanctioned. That was the purpose why he went, right? Bharata did not go to the forest to meet Ram just to do Sharanagati. That was there. But the immediate purpose was this, right? But that didn't get fulfilled. So one way you may answer that Ravan had to be killed. But then the point is that Ram can always make another plan to kill Ravan. Why to disappoint Bharat and then kill Ravan? Ram can manage both. He is smart enough to do that. But then the question is why he didn't do that. If you go to that question, then this is the answer. So again, so let's remember. So this is a very high lesson. See, one thing about Ramayana is that the lessons that are drawn out are of great intensity. So Ramayana is like really testing the characters to the limit. And you will see that always. You will see that again and again. Every character is, being, what shall I say, Lord Ram is, like a diamond being polished, is bringing out that character. Okay. So this is a very small thing if you see in one sense. But somehow Bharat said it. He said that if Ram doesn't come, then I will do this. So what Ramacharya learned is that when you go to the Lord, there is no plan B. There's nothing like, okay, if I'm going to the Lord, oh Lord, if you do not protect me, then I will take care of this. I will do this to protect myself. So it's a very high lesson, by the way. It's a very, very high lesson for all of us. But the idea is that you go to the Lord. That's why they say, na raksha shishiti vishwaso. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. Raksha shishiti vishwaso. That he will protect me. Okay, so there's no question that is not going to happen. Okay, so that's why that plan B idea, which he said, is considered one reason why that Sharanagati didn't get fulfilled. Because he had a plan B in mind. So Ram didn't fulfill plan A, that's it.
Here there was no question of protection, Prabhuji. He was not going for his own, some kind of, his idea was to bring back Ram and rule the kingdom. So in that sense, it was anyway selfless.
No, that was selfless. But what the Acharya says here is that he shouldn't have even thought that if I'm going to Ram, my desire Ram will not fulfill. So see, this is the idea is for a pure devotee like Bharat or someone of that stature. How is it that Ram will not fulfill your desire? Whatever, see, their desires are all pure devotional desire only. Okay, that may be the case. But how is it possible that that desire will not get fulfilled? How you only have a thought in your mind that he will not fulfill it? That's the part here. So the lesson is, so please try to understand, the lesson is more for us. It's not for Bharat so much. The lesson for us is that when we go to the Lord seeking protection from the miseries of the world or whatever, so we can't think that if he does not, then it's okay, or if he does not, then I'll come back to this world again. So what? So the point is, such thoughts cannot cross in our mind. That's the lesson that we're talking of. I hope you understood that part, right? It's not so much just in the context of Bharat. It is just that these characters are being tested to a very great degree. That's the point here.
Okay. And one last thing, Prabhuji, this when Sita says, I cannot bear this grief even for a moment, and then she says this 14 years, how can I bear 14 years? So why does she say that, that 10 plus 3 plus 1? I mean, like any, just to...
No, I know I didn't read anything about that. I don't know why. Maybe to interest mathematicians like you, I guess. I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure why it is said like that. Maybe there is some poetic thing in it. I don't know. I really don't. I didn't hear anything about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Haribol. Any other question? Is that Vaibhav Anand Prabhu?
Yeah, Dandavad Prabhuji, beautiful explanations. I just want to ask Prabhuji that do we have to take Lord Ram's word for Sugriva literally? I mean, he says that if I don't care if I get Sita, but I do not want to lose you, lose your life. Do we have to take that literally?
I think, okay, that context of Sugriv, right? So I think if you go into that verse, what it means is, even if I would get it, what he basically says is that your loss would weigh so much on me that none of it would give me satisfaction. So that's exactly what he's saying there. I mean, literally, that's what he's saying, which makes sense, right? So because Ram is not someone who wants to use people to get his wife back. He's not like that.
Yeah,
because
true.
that is very clear. Even at the end of the war, Ram is ensuring that all the monkeys who died come back to life. He's ready to bring even all the Rakshasas back to life. But the story is that Ravan had put all their dead bodies into the ocean because Ravan did not want the newspaper to report so many people have died. So Ravan, it is said, would ensure that all the dead bodies of the Rakshasas are thrown in the ocean. So they were not there to get that benefit. Otherwise, Ram had no objection in getting the ordinary fellows back to life because they are not at fault only.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Ram did not want to lose anyone and get Sita. That's the point. That means Ram values, and what to speak of some ordinary person. This is Sugriv. Ram had signed a pact of friendship with him. And then to lose him means something too much. And that's why he's saying that neither getting back Sita would have been given pleasure to me, nor my brothers or my own self would have given satisfaction to me if I would have lost you, O Sugriv. So in that verse, Ram is emphasizing on that aspect, and which makes sense holistically.
Okay. So, does that, in a way mean that they are compared by Lord Ram at the same platform? I mean,
Yeah,
Mother
it is. In fact, if you see, I think it is Kamba Ramayana or something, where this is even more elaborately explained that Ram, when he meets Guha, he calls him as his fifth brother, Sugriv as his sixth brother, and Vibhishan as a seventh brother. When he embraces each of them, he says that you are my fifth brother, sixth and seventh. He gives them status of a brother, actually. He as a family member. He doesn't give them any less status. These three people, Guha, Sugriv, and Vibhishan. He gives them status equal to Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrugna. That's why he's invoking his family member, saying that if I would have lost one family member, then even if I would have got other family member, I would still feel, I lost him. It's simple, right? I mean, if some father has 3-4 children, even if it is not that if one child faces something, accident and dies or something, the father will say, no problem, I have another 2 children with me. Even if one is gone, it is okay. No, he will not feel like that. Even if, a father has 10 children, he wants all 10 children with him, right, till the end of his life. He doesn't want to lose one child and say that it's okay, I have the other 9. No, the other 9 will not give him happiness because he will always keep thinking about the 10th. So it's something like that. So it doesn't mean that the others are not important, but what it means is Ram is giving Sugriv a status equal to all these people. That's why he's invoking their names.
Okay, I see. Yeah. Another thing is, Prabhuji, like we have the concept of Sharanagati, and the, many times we recite the kavachas, for example, Narsingha Kavacha, and it says that, Putravan Dhanvan Loke Dirghayur Upajayate. One becomes
Yeah.
Dirghayu when one chants and, does the Raksha Sutras. Similarly, Ram Raksha Sutra is there in, Ramayana. I think Tulsi Ramayana it is there.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, in a way, it seems that just by chanting these Raksha Sutras, we get some material benefit like, long life. But sometimes it doesn't work that way. So, how to deal with this?
Well, see, first of all, I would say that one does these things with the faith that it will give. And I would say that if one actually follows that process now of very integrated worship, one actually can live a very holistic life in this world also. That's why, if you remember, I was telling you earlier, in this context of Purushakara, the Sri Vaishnavas especially, they give a lot of importance to worship of Lakshmi Devi. That's why any Sri Vaishnava temple you go, you will see Lakshmi Devi present visibly. She has her own altar. There are separate set of prayers that they recite to Lakshmi Devi, different forms of Lakshmi Devi. Like we said, Ashtalakshmi, Santana Lakshmi for children, Dhana Lakshmi for wealth. Because the idea is that as long as you are in the world, you need the mercy of Lakshmi Devi in all these ways. Even, for example, it's very common that a pregnant lady should read Sundarakanda. Sundarakanda, the beautiful discussion between Hanuman and Sita. It is said that just by reading that, the pregnant woman, her womb is protected, by the mercy of Sita Devi. So basically, this Purushakara is there, this goddess of fortune or any other form of the Lord, in a very integrated sense of worship. Uh, if one doesn't even face too many calamities in this world. So now see, now ultimately some problem will be there only. So basically the point is, it doesn't mean that you will never die or anything like that, because when you live in this world, automatically, by the very nature of being in this world, some issues or challenges will come. But the idea is that all these Raksha Stotras that you're talking, or this worship of Ashtalakshmi, etc., it is to make your life by and large smooth, so that you don't face too many challenges in your devotional service to Narayan, as long as you are in the Iha, in this world. Okay, so I think that first of all, it comes to faith, and also it comes to, if we do it very meticulously, also because sometimes somebody may just chant these things or do it in a very occasional way, but generally whatever you're talking or what I just said, these are supposed to be kind of integrated in one's lifestyle right from childhood. Then that protection is also there in general. So it's not that it is not there, because the Lord doesn't want you to necessarily live a miserable life in this world. I mean, that is reserved for some very great advanced devotees like the Pandavas, where he is testing them or giving them in very troubled situations. Generally, ordinary sadhakas, they cannot handle so much of misery. So that's how I will look at it.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Haribol. Yeah, Uddhavanand Prabhu, you had a question?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for a very beautiful lecture. Actually, Prabhuji, I was having a little basic question. Like one act, if we see, here Lakshman is pleading to Lord Ram for Sharanagati for almost 25 verses, you told. And there are many various instances where Lord Ram and Sita Devi, both of them, they have chastised Lakshman quite heavily. So why is it so that those who are very dear to Lord, they only get such heavy chastisement? For even example, if we see in case of Chaitanya Charitamrita also, Lord Chaitanya accepted Jagai and Madai, despite I think Madai hitting on the head of Nityanand Prabhu. But if we see the case of Chota Haridas, he did a small mistake. I mean, it was not as big or as sinful as Jagai Madai, but Lord punished him, and he said, better you commit suicide. So we see those who are very dear to Krishna, even small mistake they do, we see many times a very extremist nature of Krishna or Lord Ram towards them. But those who are quite far away, and those who are little more sinful. Lord is we apparently see he's very compassionate. So why is it like that?
Yeah, good question. Good question. It's actually, in one sense, human psychology, or it is even seen in a guru-disciple relationship, that where someone is very close to the spiritual master, they get, all the maximum chastisement, everything. But disciples who are little far away, they don't get that, correct? Because that's the nature of human relationship, that those who are very close to you, they are very exalted, at least in case of the Supreme Lord, but they're tested also like that. They're tested like anything. And this you will see in Ramayana everywhere. In fact, about Lakshman, we have not yet spoken. The fifth one, Sheshatvam, is only about Lakshman. We'll be seeing many verses next time about where Lakshman is tested like anything in the Ramayana, where Ram is the kind of verses that is there, where he's speaking to Lakshman. He's testing him in a very fine way, and how Lakshman comes out of each of that. So those who are very close, so we can see that, the Lord is using them as an example and showing their greatness to us. I mean, that's how we could see, because nobody can be like Lakshman. I mean, he's way exalted. It's said that the lotus never closed itself for 14 years. The lotus eyes of Lakshman never closed for 14 years. He rendered service Jagrata Sopatascha. While awake and sleeping time, every time he was rendering service. So such people are always tested like that, to show that they are very great, right? Because unless you do that, how will their greatness come out? I mean, how will people talk about it? That what did they do? Like that. I would see it like that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I think we should end. This is my last question on the chat. Could you elaborate the character of Janaka when he said, offended Ram that he's not fit husband, not even woman? No. Janaka Maharaj did not say that. Sita said that my father gave me to a man who is not even fit to be a husband. It was not said by Janaka. Sita was blaming her father for getting her married to Ram. That was in anger, obviously. Like any woman says, why did I get married to you in the first place, or something like that. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for your kind attention. And we'll continue this theme. This will go for some more classes. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.